next panel is from fertility to longevity, and it's going to be moderated by Andrea from Pregnantish. I do want to make an announcement before we go into this panel, is after this panel, we will have a short break, and then at 5:30, Dr. Tedros will be coming in for a keynote remark. So please try to be back by 5:30 for that final session. And Andrea, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's so nice to see you all today. And, these two topics, fertility and longevity, are very much in the zeitgeist right now. I think you'd agree. And AI, of course, is everywhere at Davos and in our world. So this is a really wonderful panel I have, and I'd love you all to introduce yourself. And before that, I just want to kind of position us with what we're talking about today. We know fertility decline and population aging are often discussed at this very high level as demographic curves or future projections. But we really want to bring this conversation with these thought leaders closer to the ground, how health systems actually show up for people for the whole arc of their lives. And just to contextualize a little more so you know who I am, at the center of my work, I'm of course the founder of Pregnantish, but I'm a relationships author. And so with that background, I've often looked at how, fertility, caregiving, and aging are deeply relational and not transactional in terms of the healthcare system that serves us. They shape our relationships. I always say infertility is the biggest relationship chapter. It affects the relationship we have with our partners, our family, our communities, our workplace, most importantly with ourselves, our own bodies. That's the same with aging. So we're at a pivotal moment. Technology and AI, of course, make it possible to scale in incredible ways that were unthinkable even if we were here a few years ago. At the same time, fertility and longevity are among, I would say, the most human, the most vulnerable, the most emotionally charged chapters of people's lives, where trust and continuity and human connection cannot be automated away. In today's conversation, we're going to talk about balance in design. So how do we build health systems that are technologically powerful and scalable, but also human, equitable, and grounded in lived experiences across the full life course, from fertility through healthy aging, because I think that's the real test of a healthy health system, honoring the relationships people rely on at these critical inflection points. So I'd like to open the panel, and when each of you answer my question, please do introduce yourself briefly so everyone knows the amazing thought leadership you bring to this panel. But my first question for anyone who wants to dive in is fertility decline and population aging are, we know, often discussed as demographic trends. From your vantage point, from where you sit, where do today's health systems most visibly fail people when health is treated as only a lifelong journey rather than a series of isolated episodes of care? Would any of you like to address that question first and introduce yourself?
I'm happy to start. Hi, everyone. I'm Randy Goldman. I'm a physician at Northwell Health, which is a large health system, largely in New York. I'm the program director for our fellowship, so I train reproductive endocrinology and infertility fellows. And another hat that I wear for the health system is the chairperson for patient experience. So it's a little bit of who I am. So, I think about fertility every single day. And a lot of people who come into my office will come in with a specific problem or issue or something that they want solved. And that is largely either they're thinking about fertility preservation, or they're struggling to have a family, or they don't have all the parts that they need to have a baby, right? And we do a whole workup, and we see people, we kind of get a diagnosis, and we want to think about what's in front of us. We want to help them reach their goals. But fertility is a lot more than just the individual thing that's happening right now. A lot of fertility can help to predict things later on in life, right? So a lot of fertility issues can have downstream effects that I think we really have to think about. So it's not, I think, about the episodic care. Fertility really allows us to have more longitudinal care. And it doesn't only start when a person enters the door. It really should start, preconception, because a lot of the health issues that can happen that can influence fertility influence the ability to get pregnant, the health of a pregnancy, and then beyond afterwards. And so I think when we're thinking about fertility and longevity, all of that has to go into the mix.
Absolutely agree. Would any of the other panelists like to approach this question with your answer and your insight?
I'm Elena. I'm the Chief Transformation Officer at EVRMA, which is the largest network of IVF clinics across the globe. We have 200 clinics in 15 countries. And I'm going to build on what Randy was saying and say that fertility in an age where we are living longer and longer every day, what we're also doing is delaying the start of paternity, right? Maternity, paternity. And that comes with more infertility because we know that the biggest factor for infertility is aging. So we have a huge need, much bigger than I think anyone really realizes, of people that need fertility services that we're not meeting. And the way we really meet that need is people need to have knowledge about what they're going to need much, much earlier in life. And what's happening right now is that we don't have any of this information. And I am almost ashamed to realize how little I know about all of this before I had this job, because the message that we're getting is only how to not get pregnant, right, for our whole entire lives until you're maybe 30 plus, and all of a sudden it's too late somehow, and that's the next conversation that you're having. So to your point, the episodic care, we're only hearing messages very early on about prevention of pregnancy, or the next time is only when we are already having problems, as opposed to a much more informed, lifelong information about our own bodies where we can prevent things. We can perhaps have PCOS diagnosed earlier and treated, and even prevent fertility problems down the line, and not have to wait for a year before even accessing IVF care when maybe you could need it earlier, and time is of the essence in those cases. So I think that is one place where really systems are failing a population that, because it's aging, has very different needs.
Absolutely. The reactiveness, right, that you see across your clinics, and instead of being proactive and knowing our health. And in fact, a big population at pregnant-ish of our audience has early menopause. So to your point, just it's the whole lifelong journey of this. From your vantage point, how would you answer this question?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Max. I'm co-founder of Giro. We use physics to model biology. We are a drug discovery company developing therapies in-house and in collaboration with Roche, with Pfizer. We rejuvenated mice. Our mission is to stop aging in humans. And we were...
Can you say that again?
To stop aging in humans, to stop it. To stop aging in humans, yeah. And we started as a traditional pharmaceutical company, but we switched to aging once we learned about naked mole rats. Naked mole rats, these are strange mammals who live like 10 times longer than the rodents of this size, but the most important fact that they don't have age-related increase in mortality, and they don't have age-related decline in reproductivity. We believe this is the most important finding in the current biology. It's so huge that nobody cared for a couple of decades. As a Don't Look Up movie, you saw that. Google made a special company, California Life Company, headed by current chairman of Apple, guy previously sold Genentech to Roche for $50 billion. They acquired hordes of these naked mole rats and published a couple of papers in 2018 and 2024, actually saying that during 40 years, this size of the guy don't show age-related dependent increase in mortality. So once nature shows us it's possible not to increase risks of aging, risks of death. Our probability of dying doubles every 8 years. Fertility goes the same. So now we see examples in the nature that somebody doesn't have these problems that we are discussing now. We were arrogant not to look around, because 1/3 of all bats are also not showing signs of aging. Bowhead whale, Greenland shark, some lobsters, some turtles. We hardly live the day without eating somebody who is not aging. So, given all that, we still have the strange discussion: is aging a disease? We, as humanity, had been in this situation with obesity for a couple of decades, harsh debates like this is their life choice, why should we take care of them? They just eat a lot of food, why should we care? Like, come on. Like the same, we are now here when aging is not recognized as a disease, which creates huge problems, starting with narrative, starting with the authorization to get first phase of clinical trial, exposing people to the risks of new therapies, but they're not legally sick. They don't have a disease. So, and ending with the reimbursement. So, decline in fertility is an age-dependent thing. Going for this is cool. We also have a project for delay of menopause onset and dealing with consequences. But we understand that this is part of the bigger problem. So the main failure of the healthcare system is not recognizing aging as a disease. And this is shameful and should be fixed as soon as possible.
Absolutely. I do want to hear both from Julian and from you, Rohini, but I do have a follow-up question for you, Max. In the simplest way, how would you answer the question about how you would hack aging from your seat?
Yeah, we think that nature shows us these examples. For example, everyone knows the romantic place in France, Mont Saint-Michel. In the same castle, several families of bats are living. Some of them are aging, some of them are not. And the best experts in the field cannot distinguish them visually. They should chip them and monitor them for decades before figuring out who is who. So something very small happened to them. Our findings that aging is accumulation of random damage. It's entropy. Nothing works perfectly. We accumulate damage, and it makes all parameters of our body shake more and more. It's noisy, like our blood tests go up and down, and we look like, like a plane which is shaking before breaking apart. So we see it clearly. This is our most impactful paper up to the moment. Even Xi, leader of China, had been referencing to it when he told that people can live up to 150. So we understood that because of that, we lose our ability to recover from the diseases. When we reach 120, the recovery time becomes infinite, and we die from very first disease that we face. So we found the way to reduce this physiological noise. We did it in worms first in Singapore, got the world record for life extension for worms. Now we're going for dogs and humans. It will provide disease-free life until 100 something. And the next thing is about accumulation of this damage. This should make us live like much longer than 100. But the most we see this in nature. Physics allows us doing that, and the very same technology is used with Roche, with Pfizer for age-related diseases. It's like just validates our crazy ideas. And the last thing that happened last year, Nature magazine recognized our strange idea to apply physics to model aging as a new science, gerophysics. Now we are founding fathers of the new science, gerophysics. So we believe it's possible. This is our mission.
Interesting. I think, Julian, that's a good segue to you with longevity.
How's everyone doing, first of all? Good? Okay, brilliant. Love the energy. First, before I introduce myself, I want you to think of two questions that I'm going to ask you. What are you most grateful for right now? And what is your greatest purpose in life at this very moment? Okay. I'm Julian, by the way. I'm the host of the Beyond Tomorrow podcast. We are one of the fastest growing longevity and mindset podcasts. I've pretty much interviewed everyone in the space. We've obsessed about longevity. I'm also an investor in it. We're now going much wider. The reason for that is I always say there's no point focusing on your VO2 max if World War III starts in 6 months. So we have societal debates now and also conversations around AI. I do want to talk about hacking aging. I've asked this to so many longevity scientists. Everyone always wants to know what is the magic pill. And what I would say to the lovely lady at the back who asked the question to the CIO of Philips around lifestyle, virtually every single longevity scientist talks about lifestyle. So you've got, what are you eating? Okay, whole foods. All the crap out there about carnivore diet. Okay, I've asked, again, William Lee, all these amazing people about, does the carnivore diet actually work? It does work for a small segment of the population, but for the majority of people, it's all about having a rich whole food diet that's predominantly plant-based. Sleep. Okay, 7+ hours. I'm a terrible sleeper. It might be my genetics, but just getting to 7+ hours. Again, every longevity scientist is saying this. The third thing is exercise. Don't overdo it. 3 times a week is great. A mix of resistance training and VO2 max training is great. And then the ones that kind of get forgotten, especially with anyone who's pretty type A out there, community, meaningful connection. If you look at any of the blue zones, that is such an important factor. And then 2 that get even more forgotten about, purpose in life. What is your purpose? That's the reason why I asked you that question. And finally, chronic stress seems to be, I love how people like Peter Attia are now talking about chronic stress and psilocybin and all these amazing ways to reduce chronic stress. But gratitude for me is something I talk about a lot. It's a great way to just pause, think about what's going on in your life and just reconnect with self. Then there are a bunch of other things, but lots of data to suggest that focusing on being more optimistic actually leads to 15% longer lifespan. Having purpose in life, again, all these things. So in terms of hacking aging, I would say to anyone who's below the age of 45, just focus on those. Don't bother with any of the advanced therapeutics. Then anyone who is slightly older and wants to be a bit more risk-taking, I would highly recommend looking at what's going on in the stem cell space, gene therapy space, way too early at the moment, and also incredibly early, but also the idea of organ replacement and whole body replacement as well. But again, when you look at longevity drugs, there are none in the market right now, but GLP-1, some are saying it's a longevity drug, but then there's been metformin, and more recently, rapamycin. The amount of people taking rapamycin right now, I think it's about 100,000 people, and they're mostly have a high risk appetite and are slightly older as well. So in terms of reversing aging, just hang tight. If you're below the age of 45, realistically, actually, we're going to reach this idea of longevity escape velocity, the idea of being physically or biologically immortal in the next 10 to 15 years. It sounds friggin' crazy. Actually, last question, sorry, I'm hogging the place, but who here wants to live until they're 80? Keep your hand up.
At least 80?
Okay, who here wants to live until they're 90? Okay, with good health span. So you're like, who here wants to live to 100? 120? 150? 500? Forever? I love it. Okay, I never get that why people put their hands down. If you're having a great time, it's like, are you just going to wake up one day and be like, fuck it, you know what? I just want to die. But anyway, that's my answer.
That's great. Well, Rohini, going to you for this question, and I'll make it even a little more specific for you with your background.
Actually, don't, because I need to reply to this panel. I'm clearly the oldest person in the room. I am 66 years old, and my jaw is dropping. I mean, life was simpler in my time. We didn't have to worry about immortality, except in a very spiritual sort of way. In my country, India, 5,000 years of culture talks about life and death in a very different way. At a cosmic level, there is no death for us, especially in the Hindu religion. So it is not culturally sanctioned or expected that you cling to life, to this physical body, because there's no need to. So we've never thought about all the things that I read about for the last 10, 15 years of people wanting to live forever. And this man, when you want to live forever, I suggest you ask the people around you whether they want you to live forever too. Seriously, I'm not, being a bit facetious. It's fascinating what you talk about mole rats and bats and other creatures that can live for very long spans. We don't know yet why. Telomerase and lots of other things to worry about. You, young man, are talking about extending health spans, living joyfully, optimistically, positively for as long as you can. Well, more power to all of you. I'm hoping I can slip out in a few years. I'll watch you guys from somewhere else. But I also heard about the fertility issues here on the other side of the lifespan, and I can really understand it. In our time, we had to really worry about getting pregnant, not about not getting pregnant, which now the younger people have to constantly worry about, and you really have to think it's not just about what y'all have done or experienced, but also the toxins. Who knows how many things in the environment are responsible for this? Which brings me, because not enough babies being born, women not wanting babies early, not wanting too many babies, or not wanting babies at all, has resulted in what? A huge demographic shift in the world. In my country, in India, we say, oh, we are such a young country, demographic dividend, and stuff like that. And then you look at the demographic trends, and in 25 years, India is going to have more senior citizens than even China or any other country in the world. Now, my point on this panel is neither the economy, nor the polity, nor society is ready for such a change, and it's coming sooner than we think. Now, look at this room, look at how young you all are, but you're all going to look like me soon. So, how does a society respond now to what's coming? What kind of public infrastructure, what kind of health system reform do we need to look at the questions that these young people have talked about? And what I'm thinking about is we're going to have 350 million old people in India, older people, just India. That's more than the population of the United States. And then all across the world. Africa is the only young continent, but they will reach that point soon, 10 years later. So I want this room to think about what it means to be old, older, elder, wiser, whatever.
Can I respond to that?
Because think about it, young people need to have fun, they need to think about their careers, they need to think about their families, they need to think about prosperity. But by the time, so if I asked you, and you can't think about this because you all are very smart, so don't think too much. If I said, what does old age today? Not when he achieves his goals, but today, when I say old age, just name words associated with old age today. Don't think too much, quick.
Frailty.
Wisdom, frailty, come on, objects, think of objects associated with glasses, come on, two more.
Cane.
Pardon?
Cane.
A cane, a walking stick. So grandchildren, yes, the best thing in one's life. That's the best thing, by the way, you can have. Even more than immortality. But, so when we did a survey, my name is Rohini Nilekani, a bit late introduction. I'm from India, as you figured out. I'm a writer, but I'm also a philanthropist. My day job is my philanthropy. I work on several portfolios, including education, environment and climate, access to justice, active citizenship, and lots of fun things like that, because we have a thriving civil society in India that people like me can support. But recently I realized that because of this demographic shift, we are going to need philanthropic capital to come into the space of aging. So with Dalberg, the Dalberg people in the room, we are, yes, here of course, and Gaurav, Samana, yes. So we together produced a report on longevity and aging in India, and hopefully some philanthropists will come together to address the societal issues of aging. So I want you all to think, how should society, you all talked of canes, of fragility, of frailty as grandchildren. So when we did a survey, we found that people mentioned hospitals, wheelchairs, young people who are, but when you interview old people, they say freedom from responsibility, travel, grandchildren, financial security. So they see themselves differently. So when society sees older people as a problem, that actually takes away from society's ability to get meaningful contribution from senior citizens. I'll leave it there.
Wonderful.
Do you mind if I just thank you, first of all? And I am very spiritual, I promise. So I look forward to seeing my creator. I interviewed Mahmoud Khan, who's the CEO of the Hevolution Foundation. If you're in the longevity space, please just go to the Hevolution conference that's happening in early 2020. 26? Yeah, 27. It's what they're doing is fantastic when it comes to equity and access. And amazingly, Mahmoud is of South Asian descent. I'm of Middle Eastern descent. People from those parts of the world actually live shorter, especially with their health span. And it's amazing that Hevolution is doing a lot of studies to increase the data set on different demographics, because so much of it is actually skewed towards the US and Europe. But Mahmoud told me an amazing fact that, and this was what his father said. His father was talking about wanting, he wants to be able to walk into his grave. And most people most people want to just die when they lose financial independence, and then also dependence, like physical dependence as well. So what happens if we're able to increase that health span? I think that's the thing. It's just like, it is, pardon my French, it is fucking crap how we look at our grandparents, our parents, our uncles, and they are dying a frail death. It's crazy. You know, it's crazy that we're not addressing this. And I think the issue that I have with the longevity, what people think of the longevity space is, I get comments all the time on my YouTube videos of people saying, this is just for the billionaires. Oh my God, look at these horrible people wanting to live forever. I've spoken to so many people in the longevity space, and the vast majority of people have the kindest heart. They really want to do well in this world, and they want to help yourselves, your grandparents, your parents to live longer and healthier as well.
Well, I absolutely believe that. I also know that systems design, let's talk about that, because we can't achieve these goals without the infrastructure and the system serving them. So let's segue to that.
A couple of words just to add to it. Another one implication of recognizing aging as a disease will be changing of the narrative. Healthy aging, gracefully aging, it's like gracefully having cancer. We should discontinue this conversation. Aging is not normal. We should not tolerate that. We should treat it. We should return youth and health to these people.
Yes.
We should not tolerate it. Zero tolerance to aging.
Absolutely. So when we look at the systems, I think actually when it comes to fertility and longevity, by the way, we want to demystify, destigmatize, and bring this more into the mainstream the way we're talking about it without the shame, right? But you're inside a very large health system at Northwell. So in the U.S., what do you see when you look at your big system there? Where do you see the biggest breaks in continuity between reproductive care, women's health, longer-term well-being? What has changed in recent years since you've been there that you feel makes fixing these breaks more feasible now than before?
That's a great question. Also, one of the things that you've said a few times was that age is not defined as a disease, and there was a time not long ago where infertility was similarly not defined as a disease, and that's something that we had to work, very much towards. So that's one of the things I was thinking about. No, for sure. So I'm fortunate. I work for a very, very large health system, and with that comes a lot of resources that we're lucky to have. I think, first of all, people have to think about what the problems are and how to solve them. When you have a lot of people working for an institution or a company, you have a lot of minds kind of thinking about the same problems, which can be helpful. Multidisciplinary care is the way to go. When we train in medicine, we go through medical school, you get this sort of wide breadth of knowledge that you gain. And then as you train, you do residency, and then you subspecialize. It's very easy to think about things in a silo, whereas with a larger system like that, you're able to incorporate the knowledge of others around you and build these multidisciplinary teams in order to serve patients, not only, again, with what they're facing now, but over the course of their lifespan. And so I really think it is the resources. Now, of course, AI and technology are going to be helpful in all of those things. They're going to help scale, right? They're going to help to scale the care that we're able to provide to patients. And kind of thinking about things with the spoke in the wheel model, right? Like you can be in a central area, but serve patients that are around you. One of the examples is that we built an ovarian tissue freezing program at Northwell, which is essentially a means of fertility preservation for typically very young girls who are facing a diagnosis like cancer that can cause infertility later on in their life. And for prepubertal girls, for example, right now, the only method of preserving their fertility, although there's going to be things to come, is freezing an ovary, right? So you remove an ovary, you cut it into strips, you freeze it. And this is something that is not offered at very many places, you know? We started a program, it was a labor of love, it started during the pandemic, and we were able to sort of fully design and implement this. But it was important that it's not only going to serve the people in the main hub where the machinery is. We now accept tissue from not only my institution, but from all over and at every of the 26 hospitals that Northwell has. And so I think it's utilizing the technology in a smart way to be able to provide care is something that is not unique to larger institutions, but I think potentially easier when you have all those people thinking about a problem.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, Elena, you're really resonating with what Dr. Goldman, Randy, is saying. From your work, across the global fertility clinics, what does a proactive population-level approach to fertility care, in your opinion, look like in practice where policy and data and access often fail us? But tell us any insights there. What does that look like to you?
Yeah, to me, it has two parts. One is what we were talking about earlier of really getting more information earlier, which may start in schools, giving full information about the full reproductive life of people and what they may do to not only preserve it in case of disease, but be more proactive about it. But it's also about scaling to really meet the actual need now that we have the science and the medicine to really meet that need. I'll give some examples. In the United States, the World Health Organization will have next someone who can really speak about it, but they estimate 1 in 6 people in most countries suffer from infertility, and in the last 12 months, it's 1 in 8 people. In the United States, that puts you at 8 to 10 million people are struggling with infertility. Right now, there's only 100,000 babies born with IVF. That is an 80 to 100
huge
times
gap.
fold difference when really the science, especially in the last 10 years, has evolved to a point where it really can help most people to a successful pregnancy and with very low complications. It really is there. And also to the point earlier about aging, I think a lot of the people that are thinking about how to help those economies and, a lot of governments, and they're here probably some of you who are policymakers thinking all day long about how to incentivize people to have more babies who maybe don't want more babies or don't want babies at all. There are 10 million people in the United States who want a baby. So how about we help them get a baby? And all that would take is really more investment in the infrastructure to scale it. So just some willingness to invest in it and to scale it up.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I always say if someone fights so hard to have a family, those are the parents I want in the world, probably. Julian, if health systems were designed with that, with thinking about the very beginning of life, longevity from the start, what would fundamentally look different in your eyes about prevention, investment, and success?
So I'm going to be contrarian as usual and quote a few people that have been on my podcast. Let's go back to the lifestyle, the 5 things that I mentioned, and look at chronic stress, like children being in school right now and being weighed down by the stresses of life, of social media and all that. I had an amazing guy called Stig Severinsen, was a 4-time free diving world champion and set up this amazing company called Breathology. And was teaching kids all about breath work. And a lot of young kids, young guys especially, really don't like meditation. It's a bit boring for them. And so breath work has been just an amazing tool for them to feel more connected to themselves. Then another amazing Lebanese guy, Nadim Saad, he has this company called the Happy Confident Company. family. And it's all about creating really happy, confident kids. So they do gratitude practices. They do a lot of reframing. So mindset, that's just something that we don't think about. I only started thinking about mindset a couple of years ago. Now it's everything that I do. A great reframe, especially for parents as well, because you want your kids to be independent, connected, is rather than saying, I'm proud of you as a parent, it's actually to get the kid to reframe and say, and ask the kid, are you proud of yourself? Like, actually work through that, actually get the kid to connect with why they are doing a good job rather than getting that appraisal from a parent. And then in terms of like diet and food and the whole setup right now, especially in the US, it's crazy in the US how you have big food and big pharma and big this and big that, and you go into a Walgreens, like a pharmacy in the US, and it's I'm always amazed. You can't find one whole food. It's just all ultra processed foods. So I think until we get the stakeholders around the table and ask ourselves who's making the extra dollar here and how can we create a generation that is grounded in health, then we are not going to reach that next level. And I think, I don't know if it was Russia, but there's a great example of a country that it over-indexes on creating a nation of incredibly healthy, connected individuals that work out, that do all that stuff, because they know that individual then will be as productive as possible for the country and then lead to higher GDP per capita. So.
Max, would you add anything to what Julian's saying about thinking longevity from the very beginning of your life? What would you suggest if we designed our system that way, our health system?
Oh, nice question. I remember my first conversation about life and death with my dad when I was like 6 years old, and somehow he is a very good person. Somehow he made me understand that he will die one day, and it was the catastrophe for me. I like literally was sitting in the corner and not crying even, like I was like woo. It was devastating, understanding how unfair it is to lose somebody you love. This is the most terrible thing that can happen to us. So after that I forgot everything. I understood that we have several layers of protection against thinking about our death, and it was the very specific moment in the human development history when the cavemen realized their mortality, and the next step was made by the very primitive guys. They did not overthought it. You just go kill somebody, eat somebody, have sex with somebody, very basic things. These kind of guys are who we are now, we came here from them. So we have a lot of problems with even honestly talking to ourselves about this problem. It's cultural, glorifying death, specifying us with the idea that we will die. A lot of religious about it, it's all about that, heroic death. Death for having a better life somewhere else, all this stuff is not helping us to develop drugs against aging, So at the moment, we are in a very weird situation. I produced a movie in Hollywood with Shirley Fenn and Franco Nero, Immortalist, and the punch is that our time will be named Dark Ages, because we were okay to die, to suffer, to lose somebody we love just because we got used to it. This is crazy. Let's change our mindset.
Yeah, so on that note, I know we were speaking spiritually, and I see you want to respond.
No, I was going to come back to health systems,
yes.
Which is a question you asked.
Yeah.
I think it's an important question today.
Yeah.
because of both these demographic shifts. So I think one thing I like to talk about is, we don't realize it, but I talk about body intelligence. Can we all increase our body intelligence? This miracle that is given to us is the only thing we actually all own. We come with and we go with, maybe never go with, but even if you live forever, this is what you're going to have. This is the one thing that is yours. And so many of us don't even know how it functions, what a miracle it is, and how by tweaking our lifestyle we can improve its ability to function. So body intelligence as a public education platform, number one. Number two, childbirth onwards in many countries. I mean, this is a very privileged audience. There are not even birth records. So to start with, in India, we have something called a health stack, and we are working, government and various organizations are working to create long-term personal digital health records, which will allow the person to have their agency, their dignity, and their privacy. So you're not handing over all your information to either the government or some market player. So we are designing it so that it's an open source but secure system for all the people of India. That's another thing. So that suppose I fall sick in one place and I go to some hospital and they give me something and then I have to move. There's so much migration in the world. I go somewhere else. No connection between what this guy told me and what and I don't know. And so ability to have continuity throughout your life with your own health is the second. And of course, then all the other public systems that you have to have for both prevention and therapy.
Absolutely, and the cohesiveness, and that's where technology may be able to serve us. So let's segue to that. We have about 15 minutes left, and I do want to acknowledge, of course, that technology can scale some of these challenges, but can't always replace humans with these life chapters, right? So looking ahead in 5 years, in your opinion, what are some tasks clinicians should no longer be doing because technology can reliably handle them, but also what can they not replace, and what is actually preventing those changes from happening today? From a clinical perspective.
So there's a whole lot of things that I wish I didn't have to spend my time doing that I think technology can and should and will replace. I know a lot of that has to do with, documentation, speaking with insurance companies, medication refills, writing the same note a million times over. Though the technology currently exists, I think part of the issue is that a lot of our incentives are still built on those things, right? So if we are doing time-based whatever it is, then we're valuing time spent over efficiency, but that's not necessarily going to be better for patients or their care or their perception of their care. So I think that that's a big thing that technology will do. But, change management is hard, and convincing people that, just because they've always done it X way doesn't mean that they can't pivot and do something better and more efficient. That being said, there's a lot that I think that technology can't and shouldn't fix. Fertility is a very human thing. And people's experiences around infertility and fertility care are as variable as people are, and influenced by things like their background, finances, their religion, past trauma, relationships. And oftentimes technology will give sort of a one-size-fits-all answer, or it'll give an answer that sounds very precise, when fertility and infertility by definition is very probabilistic, right? People have a hard time thinking in percentages. They are very absolute in their thinking, right? If something happens 90% of the time, it's always going to be a yes. In reality, that's not the case. And so I think humans are needed to help interpret what the technology is going to be able to lend itself to. And that human touch, I think, especially when you're dealing with fertility, which is oftentimes what is the most important thing in a person's life at the time, it really requires the person to be there, I think, in a way that is, I think, potentially unique to fertility in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And that, Elena, from your experience, because as you said, you're operating a huge global network with so many different cultures, languages, needs, nuances. So what, in your experience, what does it mean to scale fertility care responsibly using technology across all these different cultures?
Yes, that's a great question. And, I think that what we're here to do in every country is always follow the science, and we invest in, we are the network that invests the most in research and always put out there the latest research and the science. Every country has to have their own conversation about what fits their culture, ethics, and that is something that each country has to have their own conversation and has their own boundaries, and it's very important to respect those. And it's also really important in fields like fertility to have very, very high standards around quality and safety and invest in all of those things, because we're talking about human lives, and that is also very important. Having said that, we believe that technology can help us with that, and things like, for example, investing in electronic witness systems can prevent a lot of errors even better than humans.
And a lot of those are trending in the news when we see about embryo mix-ups and dystopian news. We need that.
Sometimes that can help actually prevent human errors. So investing in technologies can help us scale sometimes in safer ways. Yes. And it's very important not only to scale faster and do things at a bigger and get to reach more patients and meet that need faster in ways that we couldn't otherwise, but actually to do it at higher quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Julian, so much of longevity focuses on the data, the prediction, the optimization, but where do you see the risk of reducing aging and health to purely technical problems? So talk about that.
I love that. Who here has a wearable? Wearable? Or a Whoop? Who here has had it for like 3 years? Okay. All right. So when I got my Whoop, all of a sudden I quit alcohol. The data was super interesting on that. I realized I didn't sleep very well. And I became obsessed. Type A obsessed. And going back to body intelligence, I feel like there needs to be this fine balance between keeping that intuition, that connection to your body, what is going on, and also using this amazing data set. Always start with measurement in the longevity space. That's why Brian Johnson, love him or loathe him, is a net positive for the space, because he is obsessed with measuring himself. He measures pretty much every single possible biomarker under the sun, including his nighttime erections and all that. But I think there needs to be a fine balance, and I think so. I've done a ton of diagnostics, and they've given me pretty interesting data. But I asked the question before to the panel around the difference between fundraising Gen AI and fundraising in biotech, long bio, biology, etc. There is barely any actual funding so far being put into biology AI. And it's because, of course, like Gen AI, like you get billion-dollar companies plus doing the most minute optimizing task that literally improves no one's life. And so what I'd love to see in the next 5-10 years time is investment. Please, any investors in the room, speak. I'm a venture partner, but please speak to some of these amazing startups, and please put more investment dollars into this space, because we actually want to see technology make a significant difference in this space.
Yes. Last question for you, Rohini, based on your experience with social systems in India and digital infrastructure, where's technology genuinely helped scale, but you're also dealing with trust and, adoption of this. So what have you seen in India?
In technology? So in India, we have, I won't spend too much time on this, but public digital infrastructures, and the healthcare system is going to benefit tremendously from the technology that's coming, AI especially. Some of our teams are working on this. But more than that, I think none of us spoke about two things. One is, how many of you in the room have either experienced a mental health issue or know someone who has? So whether it is to do, and people who want to have children but can't, people who are getting old but are afraid to be dependent on others. There are so many mental health issues in between. We are talking about longevity, we are talking about the birth, but in between, in our societies today, I got some data. 1 in 10 people in the US and UK responded that they were not seeking a job, did not have a job, did not particularly want a job, and had no particular great purpose in life. What I'm saying is we have to look at mental health when we are talking about all these health systems as well, and make access to mental health therapies much faster, and I think AI is going to help a lot in that because you cannot predict. And the second thing that I want to say that maybe we need to talk about is what he mentioned, but about purpose. And none of you are linking climate change to longevity and fertility. So these are the things that are going to come at us in the next 10, 20 years. So with all the work that you do, let's link in what's happening with climate change, what's happening with mental health situations, and how do we remain. To me, hope is a religion. So hope is my religion. Because it's the one religion that unites, doesn't divide people, and it gives you the energy to wake up every day and say, today's a great new day, right? And to work hard for something good. So that's all I'll say. Technology is going to come. All that is going to happen is going to improve health outcomes for sure. We can see that already. But technology is one thing. What about the humanness that we need to? We need to reach out to each other to make this global planet, this global family safer, healthier, more prosperous.
Can I add a couple of words just to link the longevity and the environmental problems? I think that people who are living short life, their mindset is dependent on their life expectancy. If the same people will live much longer, they will take care much more about the environment, the planet where we live. It's just because we live so short, we are short-minded. We should predict for the future.
Well, absolutely. So I love that we're thinking so holistically, which I think we do need to do. I want to open up for the 5 minutes we have to audience questions.
Hi, guys. I'm Eric Choi Pena from Northwell Health. Nice to be here. I have a question for, I think, anyone that wants to answer it on the panel. We've heard a lot of amazing talk today. We've heard a lot about health equity in a lot of the other panels and a lot of space. And when I think about longevity and fertility, it's one of the places where the path to kind of last mile in most of the world still feels really obscure to me. And I don't know if anyone heard at the Congress Center today, but Bill Gates announced a partnership with OpenAI to put AI-powered community health workers in 1,000 clinics in Africa, starting with Rwanda. Yeah, so where do you guys think that comes for the longevity and fertility space? How do we reach kind of that last mile where there are so many challenges with access and access to care?
I would love to answer. I believe all these longevity breakthroughs will end up being free for the population because, to speak about it cynically, you get healthy, educated taxpayers for more time. So it's like win-win. You get the health, you get the extra healthy life, productive and the stuff. You see your grandkids, grandkids marry, have their kids. You're a happy person, but you continue working, continuing to contribute to the society. And pharma already made it, with COVID vaccines. They understood that, I understand this is a loaded topic, but still, they understood that they should treat everyone. After that, they sold it to governments for zillions, and governments made it free for everyone. I believe in the end we will end up with a situation when the longevity therapies will be accessible, and every person will face kind of the conversation like, look, we have cool therapy. It will keep you healthy and young for many years. You can opt for it for free or almost for free. Or if you want good old cancer, being in your bed, having like a dozen of people dancing around with you with Alzheimer's, it will cost you a little bit more, so you go for that. So it will be free. This is my reply.
Universal basic immortality.
Absolutely.
I think that we're probably a little bit further away from that, especially in the, obviously thinking about it from a fertility realm. One of the other things that I'm doing as part of, my role at Northwell is helping to develop global fertility care and specifically working in Guyana. And there's a lot of overlap between challenges and access to care, regardless of where you are, but it's certainly going to be more pronounced in some places than others. And with that comes potentially additional stigma, depending on where it is that you grow up, right? Fertility impacts everybody. It is a global problem. It's not unique to one place. It's not unique to one group of people. But I think cost really remains a major barrier. And part of it is that among lots of other things in women's health, fertility often gets overlooked in lieu of other things. And, it's not that fertility should be like the number one thing on everybody's list, but it oftentimes is sort of at the bottom, right? It's thought of potentially as luxury medical care, which it should not be. It is a disease. So thinking about it from that standpoint, I think, very idealistically, yes, eventually it's not going to be a problem, but I do think it's important that we focus on the right now, which is that we have to purposely dedicate additional funding for it on a global scale as it relates to fertility.
100%. Any other questions from the audience?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and wonderful talk. My name is Elaine Yu, and I'm from a Swiss investment firm. We invest in longevity and women's health and mental health, and we had a mental health day yesterday. As for myself, I'm happy for anyone to connect with me with your wonderful idea or any project. And as for myself, I'm 44. I've been trying to have a baby for the last 7 years, so I know very well about the fertility space. And I would like to discuss more on a personal level about my experiences. And last year I realized that all of my life problem came from the fact that I have never slept well ever since I was 6. I was unable to sleep, so I was doing genetic analysis for myself. So I just use AI to analyze my own gene for any problem I have, likelihood of getting Alzheimer's and everything, the reason why I couldn't sleep, and I use different method of try myself to feel better. I've been sleeping for 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours in the last 7 days. And then yesterday, in our mental health day, we had an event in Davos. I managed to do some meditation. One was called darkness retreat. The other one was moving meditation, so you're dancing while you do meditation. And there's another thing I did with someone else's event. It was like a color meditation. And on top of that, I did one thing called cacao ceremony. And then yesterday I slept for 12 hours, and I just woke up.
Congratulations.
So I'm happy to meet anyone to talk about investment, good idea, and I mean I also have a lot of things to talk about in the longevity. You were saying that it's a disease, maybe genetic flaw, and let's connect and talk in the future. And I'd like other people to have a chance to talk about their question too. And if
thank you so much for sharing that. But
I'd love just to say,
Julian has some thoughts. I see.
No. It's just like I think the idea that we are still. So many people's nervous systems are just completely effed. It's crazy how we just don't know how to regulate our nervous systems. And I think this is going to be the big breakthrough in the next 3 to 5 years. This is why I talk a lot about mindset, meditation, breath work. Plant medicine is going to be there's a lot of interesting studies going on with some amazing trailblazers like Christian Angermeyer as well. But it's amazing to hear that, and it's amazing the data is showing you like, I need to look at this. Also, generational trauma, something that we completely forget about. And I remember speaking to my therapist 3 years ago, and she was mentioning this thing, generational trauma, and I was like, oh my God, this is so woo-woo. And now I'm like, everything that I do is grounded in the fact that actually we're holding in our cells some of the trauma from our parents, grandparents, etc.
So speaking of that, I'll tell you my generational trauma. So my father. Okay.
We do want to, yes, absolutely, but please.
Couple more questions.
Thank you. My grandmother's 102, and she's an incredible sleeper. I just visited her on my way here. And I wonder so I'm planning on living a long time, even if all your ideas don't quite come together in the next 10 years. But I wonder what you can say about the implication for the caregivers. So my grandmother has 27 great-grandchildren, many grandchildren. Some live close by. I don't live close by. I watch my mom and her other sister in their caregiving roles also not living close by. And as you think about these longevity trends, what recommendations or ideas do you have or implications for the caregivers?
That's a great question. Do anyone?
I have the real situation, but it's not for everyone. Maybe one guy invested to us without meeting us, and finally we met him and asked what happened, how you made this decision. And he told that he spent a lot of time with ChatGPT asking different questions, and he asks, look, I'm like I'm not poor. I want to live as long as possible. What should I do to live as long as possible? And don't tell me about the healthy lifestyle. And ChatGPT told, invest into the longevity drug discovery company because you will get the early access to the technologies and the information about that. So this is a proactive position.
But you're right, caregivers have a serious issue because nobody thinks about their own mental well-being. By the way, my mother-in-law is 101 in 3 days. She's been with me for 25 years, and she has the best kind of dementia where she lives entirely in the moment. She doesn't worry about the past, she doesn't worry about the future, which is what in our yogic traditions we are trained to aspire to. She has it because of her mild cognitive impairment. And I say, Amma, so how are you today? She always says, I'm super fine, even when she's sick. And I say, how are you like this? She says, well, I don't think about death. I only think about life. And that's how she lives.
I love it. Well, I'd love to just go down the panel, actually, and have you share a final thought from where you sit of what you hope as we, this conversation's about how to keep our humanity. We want to be relational, not transactional in all of our jobs and through the life course. But any last thoughts? I'll go down the panel.
My mission, I'm maniacal and deluded about it, is human flourishing for all. I want to see a world where every single person can physically and mentally thrive if they so choose to. If anyone is working on anything that wants to further this mission, please do get in touch. The world is in a weird dysfunctional state, and we need more people with big hearts to step forward.
I love that thought that you said as a thought to end with, think about life. And now the world has evolved to a state where life takes many, many forms. And in the world of fertility, that means that we are able to support many, many ways to growing families. So my hope is to really be able to support each and every person that wants to grow a family in whichever circumstance. And I think that will be not only, we owe that to society, to the 10 million people in the United States, to those 1 in 8 people throughout the world that have struggled with infertility in the last 12 months, but also it's what we need to do for our society to thrive as well.
Absolutely. And I do want to add, when we hear 1 in 6 and 1 in 8, that is what is reported. And you can imagine around the world, a lot of people are not even aware that they have infertility, or they don't want to admit it. So it's probably a silent epidemic much more than we know. Randy, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Elena said. And, we think about longevity, we think about, it's not just living longer, right? It's having a good quality while you're living, hopefully, as long as you want. And, when you ask people what they're proudest of, oftentimes they do talk about their families, they talk about their children. And being in a position to help people grow their families is truly an honor and a privilege. There are lots of ways to build and grow a family. There's not only one way. So whenever I'm speaking about fertility, I like to sort of end with that it's not one path, it's not one road, it's not one size fits all. And there's lots of options to help people at the end of the day reach their goals.
I'm here to talk about longevity on this panel, so let me stick to that. The reality on the ground is that people are aging faster than globally than we thought. And while we wait for better options, health options to come along, which they will, let's be empathetic, sympathetic to the silver generation. They have much to offer society, but what they want is respect, dignity, and love. Can we give that and share that with the senior population of this world? Because they want not necessarily to add years to their life, but life to their years and meaning to their years. And we all have a duty to help with that.
Yeah, thank you. The big question about the future is, are we present in this future? U.S. President is coming, and the former U.S. President Jimmy Carter taught us a good lesson. He got his skin cancer when he was 90 years old. So he lived long enough to get exposed to futuristic technologies. Pure magic immunotherapy, Keytruda, had been introduced a couple of years before his melanoma. He got treated and lived happily 10 more years. in some way, love it or not, we are all at Jimmy Carter's now. We are all in this strange game. Are we living long enough to get exposed to these technologies or not? And I looked up to the skies, made some photos yesterday, beautiful stars, and there is a saying that butterfly which lives one day cannot cross the ocean, and we living like 80 years old cannot go to stars. So let's get rid of these strange things, rudimentary, we don't need it. Let's go to stars.
Thank you so much. So it turns out Dr. Tedros is almost here, and he's definitely worth staying for. But we do have a few more minutes for another question. I so appreciated all of your last thoughts, but let's take one more. Maybe two more.
That's incredible. Thank you very much for a wonderful panel. I have been taking a lot of notes from what you said. My question is about something we don't talk a lot about, but you mentioned a couple of times, is brain longevity and our neurological health. A lot of times I see longevity experts speaking about things like how fit we are, the beauty industry taking care of our wrinkles, and then we think about how fat or thin we are. If we are able to have babies. But what about our age when we turn 80 or 90 and how do we prevent Alzheimer? How do we prevent having dementia? How do we prevent having other neurological diseases? And by the way, women are more prone to have those. I'm really curious to hear your opinions and learn a little more about that.
Yeah, I could take the question. When we looked into the UK Biobank data and we saw the huge list of the declines associated with age, the first decline was cognitive decline. We start being dumber starting from 30 years old. For example, pair matching tests, or you can do it trying to find the same socks. The time needed to do that increasing linearly, starting with 30 years old. So it is IQ is going down. A lot of things happening, but it's all just one of the millions of consequences of aging itself. This is the real problem. This should be addressed because, we can say how awful is cancer, how scary is a stroke, and how terrible is Alzheimer, but the real cause for all of that is aging. If we treat that, we get rid. This is ultimate preventative approach.
Yeah, so many angles to take this, including supplementation. I had Susan Greenfield, Baroness Susan Greenfield, on the podcast. She's one of the leading neuroscientists, and we talked actually a lot about the effects of AI with brain rot, and then social media as well, the decay of just function. And I think that's probably the more important conversation right now. But in terms of, I always love to see scans of brains after an individual meditates for 6 months or adds gratitude practices into their into what they do. So there's definitely different options, and we can talk about it after.
Yeah, also, I just add a couple of words. We rejuvenated mice, and rejuvenated mice had better cognitive functions, like open field tests. It was more curious, but still we believe that only partial rejuvenation is possible. So waiting is not for free. We accumulate irreversible damage in our brain, and even part of this audience will survive long enough to get the access to the new technologies. Another question, in what shape you will face it. So don't wait too long.
No, I also think we shouldn't underestimate the ovaries, right? And the power of estrogen, right? We know that in menopause, premature ovarian failure, there is a very real neurocognitive decline for people who take estrogen supplementation afterwards, tend to have less of that. So, I think we certainly don't have it perfectly yet, but I think that the role of our sort of innate hormones, our endogenous hormones, we lose them. It all has to do with aging, but the ovaries are really, really important. And not removing them when you don't have to, I think, is also very important.
Absolutely. For those who don't know who Dr. Tedros is, he's the Director General of the World Health Organization, so it's very much worth waiting for him. But as you know, at Davos, people move slowly. There's a lot of people and a lot going on. His projected ETA is 5 minutes from now, so we can spend 5 minutes now to stretch unless there's another question someone wants to ask. Okay, one last question. But you can also stretch for those who want to.
Yeah, go for stretch. It's okay.
Okay. Sure.
I can talk. So I find it to be very, very interesting. I am a person who loves kids. I have 2. Sleepless nights is my life right now. I have also considered being a egg donor. However, my biggest problems are my friends. Like most people, they've waited too long having kids. And I feel like none of you were talking about how to increase. I love what she said about increasing her options with AI. What is there any, there are no hacks? Of course there's no hacks. But
no.
What you have so much in your podcast. I just looked you up, I didn't know about it.
It's public policy. You need much more childcare facilities, free, close, accessible to women. They should be able to have their work careers, but they should also have continuous support.
We have everything for free, including IVF.
But I will say, I think it's also an awareness issue. Yeah. So if we can't get the access without the education, the awareness of what we don't know, and that's really where it starts, and hopefully AI can help power that, but we also need the human support on a very vulnerable journey. So the fact that we're talking freely, this is the first time that I know of, right, Eric, at Davos Health, that fertility is even on the agenda as we talk about health. We know there's a global, 2026 has one of the biggest drops in decline for the population. This has to be on the agenda at Davos. So it's a really important time for us to have this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I think as anybody who has struggled with infertility knows that we don't always have a diagnosis, and we call it unexplained infertility, which is a horrible name. It just means that we don't have the technology to know yet what the cause of somebody's infertility necessarily is. And, when you think about how AI can leverage things, I think access and organization are going to be key. Education is something that's going to come next because you can sort of scale that and make it personalized. Diagnostics is harder, right? Because everything comes down to our genes and what mutations we might have, things that we can't even potentially comprehend right now. Egg age, right? How is the mitochondria in the egg functioning? Is it not functioning? Is there an issue there? Nuclear maturity is not the same as cytoplasmic maturity in the cell, right? So there's a lot that we don't know now, that we don't even necessarily have all the questions to ask, but I think that that's one of the things that's coming, not necessarily tomorrow, but hopefully very soon, to be able to explain more about what we...
Can I ask quickly, do men think as much about infertility, and if so, what are their main concerns? Because the men are 50% involved, I think.
I get pregnant-ish, I get many direct messages from men. So I can confidently say they're very underserved in this conversation. It is not a women's health issue. It is a human issue. But they are on DM with us a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else before? Yes.
What I want just to mention, as an inspiration, I really want to thank you, Rohini. You changed the discussion to a very interesting one and put down the walls around technology and science, because it's the human behind it. And when we start to think, you turned it around like that. It's getting more holistically, and like when we start to think about from the human being, from inside out, then we come with the breath and we go with the breath. And what I did realize in the last couple of months working in a psychotherapy clinics with sick people, traumatized people, that everybody is breathing wrong. And everybody did breath work, but nobody is really looking how do they breathe. And stress and the outside, the pressure and everything we get from outside the inside, and how our system is reacting, because we're so disconnected from ourselves, from our intuition, from our purpose, it's changing our breathing. And I think when we start to look from there on, and then go in the outside, and then we add something on it, we get much more self-confident person. They can decide on their own what they really want, what they can do, and then I don't have to organize for them if they want really children or not, if they have them too late. It's their decision, and there are consequences out of it. And I think most of the time we try to avoid consequences out of our behavior or not behavior and not taking decisions. And when we start to change a little bit also this panel discussion about like, where's this self-responsibility of everybody and where does it lead to us and how can we support them? I think also longevity will change a lot.
Yeah, I love that. Just want to add one last point. I know everyone wants to leave, and but great. We've got Tedros straight after us with a sporting act. But this oneness, I think, is just so important that you mentioned before. Like, we are all one in this, the Human Exposome Project. Like, how the environment is affecting us. Like, I can't believe how little understanding we have that, you know, the noise, the air, the sounds around us are affecting us so much. And imagine what's happening to the kids as well. They're again, talk about generational, what they're taking on as well. So we need to change. Unfortunately, usually people come crawling when something terrible has happened to them, maybe bereavement, a traumatic accident. Who here actually believes that they're connected to their nervous system? They feel aligned with their nervous system. Okay. I don't know if people are feeling nervous about putting their hands up, but I day to day can see myself leaving my body and then having to come back, and it's just a constant process. So.
Okay, well, apparently he's about 3 minutes away now. I'm getting real-time updates. So, yeah, we can stretch. I think we can stretch. Thank you so much to our esteemed panelists.
And please thank our panelists. Give a good stretch. And then for those of you who are standing, please feel free to take a seat so you don't need to stand for the last section. And invite all of you to take a seat as well. Thank you for being with us. We would love a photo, though, if you don't mind first.
Sure.